What's happening, people? You see this shirt, yeah? Two things. One, I hope you guys appreciate the shirt. And two, this is my reaction to a lot of things in life, especially Charles Leclerc's 2022 F1 season. Why is that? We all know why. A certain prancing horse, Ferrari, Scuderia Ferrari, the most competent strategy team on God's green earth. A lot of people blamed Ferrari for costing Charles Leclerc the championship. He was a worthy champion. He was someone who deserved to win the championship were it not for idiots behind his car. But that's the thing we aim to explore in this video. Would Charles Leclerc have won the championship with Ferrari being perfect in every strategy department? Let's find out. So the rules of this video are very simple. We take the points totals of Leclerc and Verstappen at some points throughout the season and see how it could have been different versus what it was in reality. And how this is going to be different is the main rule of this video. Every time Leclerc gets shafted by his strategy team, we predict where he would have finished that race and give him that points, and then subsequently deduct or exceed for Max Verstappen accordingly. And there we just carry on from there. Everything else remains the same. That is, if Leclerc made a driver error, so like his mistake at the French Grand Prix, or certain things like his engine blowing out, all these things are part of the game. They are all part of the game. Every time there is a strategy error from Ferrari's side, we give Leclerc the benefit of the doubt, and we see whether he could have won the championship, whether it was a close title race, how long did it take for Verstappen to win the title, if that is the case, all of these things. So let's get into it. Ferrari had a brilliant start to the season. Bahrain 1-2. Saudi Arabia could have taken the win, finished second. Australia, an absolutely dominant victory, and everything was just going well for them in the beginning. We were like, is this the year Ferrari's back? Is this Ferrari's year? But then that showed us we learned nothing throughout history. We have seen this time and again Ferrari being monsters at the start and then proceeding to choke like they usually do. And the first sign of a choke job came at Leclerc's home Grand Prix, the Monaco Grand Prix. Here's my 2 cents on the Monaco Grand Prix. I think it's an embarrassing track for like modern F1 racing. Like it's actually unbelievable how that track is allowed on the F1 calendar. There is more overtaking in a parking lot, and there is more space on the track in than I don't know, like a squirrel's nest has more space than the Monaco circuit. Ferrari finished the race second and fourth. And you'll think, oh, okay, fine. Maybe Leclerc finished second. Leclerc was the man on pole, and he finished fourth. How did that happen? Ferrari pitted Leclerc and then pitted him again a couple of minutes later because it was like, the weather conditions were changing. But in that process, not only did Carlos Sainz get past him because he had stayed out for longer, Sergio Perez got ahead of Charles Leclerc. Max Verstappen got ahead of Charles Leclerc, his career rival, the title rival, who in real life was just slightly ahead of him in the championship hunt. But Leclerc was still very much in that. This was his chance to flip the script because Verstappen was running behind Sergio Perez, right? The race ended Perez, Sainz, Verstappen, Leclerc. To do that is just truly remarkable. How Ferrari managed to pull it off, I will never understand. But then that's exactly what happened. And at the end of it, Leclerc was supposed to take the win. And if he had taken the win, this would have been his points total ahead of Verstappen, who sits on this. Instead, Verstappen extended his championship lead at Monaco, which is quite honestly embarrassing. But it was only the beginning for Ferrari. After Monaco, F1 saw the Azerbaijan Grand Prix and the Canadian Grand Prix, two races that Max Verstappen won, which means that he took maximum points out of two races, leaving Leclerc with a bigger mountain to climb. And then came the British Grand Prix, a race where everything looked fine and it was like another run of the mill Silverstone Classic and all that. Verstappen suffered damage to his car, essentially putting him out of the win, a podium, or even a top 5 finish. Everything looked great. It was a chance to claw back, hit back at Verstappen, make this championship interesting again. And Leclerc, after a safety car was drawn out, was leading the race ahead of Carlos Sainz and ahead of Lewis Hamilton. Ferrari, instead of pitting this guy who was on old hard tires, left him out to dry. And Carlos Sainz came in for fresh softs, who was the pole sitter of the race, but he was too slow and Leclerc overtook him. Lewis Hamilton, the man running in third, came in for fresh softs. And when the race restarted ahead of the safety car, Leclerc found himself overtaken by Sergio Perez. actually Carlos Sainz first, who overtook him right, I think in the first lap of racing and stuff like that. Carlos Sainz overtook him, Sergio Perez overtook him, Lewis Hamilton overtook him. That was the race where we got that "Through goes Hamilton," that iconic line from David Croft. Leclerc finished a race he was supposed to finish first in fourth, and he put up an incredibly determined fight on old hearts, holding off Sergio Perez and Lewis Hamilton. A truly dominant win it could have been had they just pitted him. They could have pitted him behind Sainz and he would have overtaken him, I think, because he was that strong. Leclerc's points at the end of the British Grand Prix in our universe should have been this, and Verstappen, who finished a measly P7, should have been on this. After the British Grand Prix came the Austrian Grand Prix and the French Grand Prix. Leclerc won the Austrian Grand Prix in dominant fashion. He overtook Max Verstappen three times in the race, which is a truly staggering performance. And then he went to the French Grand Prix and delivered the scream, that visceral scream that haunts Ferrari fans to this day. And then came the Hungarian Grand Prix, a chance to set things right. Max Verstappen, due to a qualifying blunder, started P10. P10 is one of the worst positions on the grid to start from, especially for a car which is as fast, because the Hungarian track is difficult for overtaking. Ferrari started second and third, ahead behind George Russell, who qualified on pole. Leclerc had a dominant two-thirds of the race, I would say, where the Ferrari made all the right strategy calls. He managed to get past George Russell, he managed to get past Carlos Sainz at one point, but then disaster struck. Leclerc was put onto hard tires on a track where the hard tire was shown to be incredibly bad. We had Alpine had showed that the hard tires never ran over there. The other runners who were running mediums were much faster. The hard tire was taking a while to warm up, so it's essentially you're going slower and you're a hazard to track, essentially, to the faster cars, I mean. And Leclerc put on the hard tires anyway, thanks to those idiot Ferrari strategists. And then because of that, he ended up losing his lead and he ended up finishing the race in a staggering sixth position. Sixth. It's honestly like I can't believe it, right? Like the thing with the Hungarian Grand Prix is that if you told me before the race that the result would be Verstappen, Hamilton, and Russell, I would have laughed my ass off. How Verstappen went from 10 to first is the perfect indication that Ferrari just gifted him the win. Thanks to a disastrous pit stop tire call, they managed to bottle it and finish way outside the podium. And Leclerc's points, like we are counting this as another win for Leclerc because it should have been. All he had to do was go on the mediums or even the softs. Like I don't think the soft tire would have lasted that long, but then Leclerc could have had the skill cap to make it work. We are counting this as a win for him because it was the easiest thing to do. Put the medium tires on and shut up. So this should have been his points after the Hungarian Grand Prix. But Ferrari didn't do anything. And they effectively bottled that race as well. And then they had another bottle job the very next race at the Belgian Grand Prix. It was something like Max Verstappen was unstoppable. P14 to P1, no stopping him, not Leclerc. No one could have stopped him that day. That's fine. We try to do damage control. If Verstappen's that fast, we try to do damage control in it. What did Ferrari do? They were running comfortably fifth, which is not impressive for the Ferrari, but okay, fine. We're running in P5, that's fine, fair enough. They wanted the extra fastest lap point, which is also fair. But what's not fair is pitting him, not considering that Chad Alonso was right behind him. And as soon as Leclerc came out of the pits, Alonso was ahead of him. And that effectively ruined Leclerc's fastest lap charge. He was off the pace by, I think, half a second or something. Alonso was overtaken eventually because, of course, he had to be overtaken. Leclerc finished the race in fifth, so the pit stop was worthless. And then he got a 5-second penalty for speeding in the pit lane, which wouldn't have happened if these guys hadn't pitted him in the first place. There was another strategy blunder from Ferrari because they didn't account for Alonso coming behind and essentially nicking that place back. And Leclerc finished the race in sixth again. And Verstappen at this point was running away with the championship. Like I think the Belgian Grand Prix was the day that if it hadn't been damaged already, Leclerc's confidence was in the mud. Like deep down Mariana Trench level of the mud. And it's safe to say that it was just a formality for Verstappen from then on out. And that's exactly what happened. The title challenge that Leclerc mounted ended at Japan. Yeah, Japan. Japan, Verstappen got the right amount of points required to win the championship and put an end to Leclerc's, title charge, if that pathetic excuse of a campaign can even be called that. But in our universe, if you consider every other points that happened, the title challenge would have gone all the way to Mexico. At the US Grand Prix, Leclerc was still relatively in the title hunt, but it was hanging by a thread as it was hanging for him in Japan. At the Mexican Grand Prix, he failed to get the required number of points, and that means Verstappen at the end of the Mexican Grand Prix was on these many points, and Leclerc was on these. Enough for Verstappen to win the title and crown himself the 2022 Drivers' Champion. As this video proved, even if Ferrari had a nearly perfect strategic season, there was no way that Leclerc could have won against Verstappen. He was unbelievable. He stomped the competition. He was the most deserving champion of 2022. That's it for today's video, and I will see you guys soon in the next video. And I can't wait for the 2023 season like all of you lovely F1 fans. So watch the space, and I'll see you soon.